Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Collider cast, episode 158. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm Andy Lewis.
I'm Sid Gill.
And I'm Rory J. Summers.
I've got an important question, gentlemen.
Go for it.
It's really, you need to take this seriously, okay? Right?
Oh, God, here we go.
I really need to know what your mince pie count is. Today.
Today or ever?
Today.
Oh,
Right,
no. Although I did have two with cream the other night.
Well, I'm on...
When's our starting point from, Sid?
I mean, the reason I'm asking is I need somebody to join me in the boat that I'm in. I've had three.
Today.
And a cinnamon knot. And a Leberkuchen, chocolate dipped. And 2 beers.
Today.
Today.
That's just today.
Today.
That's in the last 35 minutes. Okay.
No. Some of that was at work. I had 2 pints during the day just to get me
I
going.
agree with Rory here. I can see the glint in Sid's eye. That's a man fully sugared up right now.
Oh, I'm buzzing, boys. I'm buzzing. I was hoping you guys were going to join me in my overindulgence.
I cannot stand mince pies, so my answer is 0. It will remain
Get
0.
off my podcast, Rory Summers.
my cumulative
seconded.
mince pies will be 0.
But not only have I had 3 mince pies, I've had brown butter with cognac mince pies.
Brandy butter.
Oh.
Brown butter.
What's the difference between that and brandy butter?
Oh, it's burnt butter, innit? It's burnt butter rather than
burnt butter.
butter and cream. But brandy butter's like a creamy thing, innit?
Well, it's fairly crystalline.
Is it?
Hard stuff, yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's like a cream-based product, right? It's not.
I don't know, to be honest. It's mostly sugar and booze.
Sugar, booze, and yeah, okay. No, not
Bound
that.
together in fat.
No, I've been enjoying the delights of Mr. Waitrose, who has stepped up to the mark again this Christmas.
Oh, I haven't bought any Waitrose ones yet.
Check out the brown butter and cognac ones, Mr. Tudor. I think they will sate your desires.
They'll be going on the next shopping list, definitely. Although I keep getting told off because I have a reputation for mince pie, so I've been told off before I've had any because it's going to be assumed that I'm going to have too many, which is correct.
Yes, absolutely.
See, what I was hoping for when I asked my questions, you would have said I've had a box, because normally you have.
Yeah. See, I was about to ask you, is it the official number or the actual number?
No,
because the official one is like, oh, I've only had one.
No. Mine, I'm happy to admit I have had 3 today, plus all the other stuff. And I do feel quite chipper.
Quite literally full of Christmas cheer.
Yeah, I'm ready.
So in other news, I just want to point out, you notice I've got a new camera, which now means you guys can see my clipboard.
Oh my God, it's got a nail
It's
on
got
the
a
wall for it
hook.
and everything.
It's got a hook. And this is my new digital clipboard. Look at that. It's got work stuff on it that I'm not going to show you. But
Hang on. Say that again.
it's got work stuff on it.
No, not
that
that bit.
All right.
The interesting bit.
It's
A digital clipboard.
a digital little clipboard. Yeah, well, it's one of those little digital boards which are then have attached to my actual clipboard.
Digital.
Well, and it does. It hangs just there.
He genuinely lives in the future, doesn't he?
Yeah. Do you know what I was thinking about the other day? I was just driving home the other day, and I was like, I haven't used my coffee holster in a while. And I was like,
In
I
about
remember
6
that.
months, I'm guessing, because, you haven't been to Expo for, 6 months.
No,
You need to go to another games convention. Then, you should have gone to
doesn't-
Dragon Meet this weekend. And then
Or Aircon. Northwest, west, southeast, whatever it is.
he doesn't need a games convention to walk around with a holster on.
No, that's
True.
It's every Saturday morning for him. He just wanders
Really
around
should.
with it.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm going to do it this Saturday? Taking the kids to the zoo. We're going to go see Father Christmas at the zoo in the reindeer paddock. Coffee holster all the way.
No brainer, mate. No brainer. Clipboard in the other hand.
I don't need a clipboard. It's not like I need to take a register of my 2 children. Son, yes. Daughter, yes.
You might have to note down your path and things to do on the day. I mean, you're an organised man, Mr.
I am.
Simmons.
I've got a digital map though, Sid. Come on. Living in the future. Anyway, since we're talking about living in the future, should we talk about some board games that are not based in the future?
Well,
look
one
at
of
the
them's
list.
kind of ish. A bit.
Go on then. With the segue worse than any of my cheesy ones, let's go for that one, Andy.
I'm pretty sure it's not worse, but well, let's say it's as bad. I'll accept that. Recently, I say recently, it's probably about 2 months ago now, the Kickstarter of Endeavour Deep Sea, which is the kind of sequel to Endeavour Age of Sail, which Steve received many years ago, which we all played and really enjoyed. And I managed to bag myself a second-hand copy a few years ago now, which I've still never played, but never mind, we'll move on. Endeavour Deep Sea is set... I'd say the future, but it's kind of, if it is the future, it's near future, where we've got little sort of submersibles going to the bottom of the ocean and things like that. So, because I don't think we do that much these days, because it's quite hard getting, 5 kilometres below the surface without getting, crushed, as recent holiday makers have discovered. But Endeavour Deep Sea it carries on the same beats as the previous Endeavour. So if you remember, if anyone has played Endeavour, each turn you will receive a building in the first Endeavour. In Endeavour Deep Sea, you will receive a member of staff. And the idea is that you are a research team and you are poking around the ocean, trying to find more stuff down there, doing some conservation activities, sort of saving turtles and whales, scanning the ocean floor to find out what's down there, and doing a bit of science, generally speaking. So
bit of generic science.
Bit of science, releasing journals, publications, that kind of thing. So it is quite nerdy and definitely within my wheelhouse, because that's what I used to do, except not in the sea. It was in a lab with a laser. But anyway, it's obviously a very different setting, this one being in the ocean and Endeavour Age of Sail being set in the age of discovery, so back in the days of discovering and taking advantage of the world, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, taking advantage of, invade and
bartering
colonize, yes.
with the locals. That's yes. I think that's the phrase, isn't it? And in Endeavour Deep Sea, you are moving little submersibles around the map, and unlike Endeavour, which has a fixed board, Endeavour Deep Sea has a board that you build as you go. So one of the actions is it's really, so obviously every game is basically going to be different. So there's a big stack. There's 5 depths of ocean, starting at the surface and going deeper and deeper and deeper. And it even has the names of each of these regions of the ocean, Bissopelagic and all that sort of stuff, if you go really, really deep. One of the actions allows you to basically progress and build the map. So you get this big stack of tiles. You can take 2 tiles and you decide which one you want to put down. And they come with bonuses and stuff. So not only can you get a better tile that will allow you to do something you might want to do, it'll also get you a bonus which can increase your abilities to do certain things. Start of each turn, you'll gain a member of staff, which allows you to do a new action or combination of actions. You will then gain some discs, which then allow you to do actions because you spend a disc to do an action, and then you'll retrieve some discs that you've previously spent. Usually fewer than you want or fewer than you've previously spent. So you've got to think about what you've already spent and what you're going to spend in the current round.
Because that's the key mechanism here in this game, isn't it? Whether it's the tiles that you draw in will have essentially action slots. They always have one action slot, don't they? And they give you an action or a choice of actions or 2 actions. So you place your action tile token on there, and then in the next round you then have to clear some of your action spaces. Not all of them. It's rare that I think you can clear all of them, isn't it? You clear your action
towards the
spaces
start of the game. Yeah, you'll usually find 1 or 2 of your staff members are hindered for a round or 2. Once you've got further into the game, you can generally recover a lot more. But again, it depends. So essentially, what you have is 4 tracks on your player board which determine essentially the level of staff member, the seniority of staff member you can acquire. So the further up the track you are, the better staff you've got access to, the number of discs you get, the number of discs you retrieve, and also how far and how deep your submarines can go. And that's on the last track. So the further up they are, that sort of last sort of cog track, as it were, you can move your subs further and you can move them deeper into the ocean, because initially you're only stuck to the surface, which is a bit rubbish. You want to go deeper because it's more exciting. So ultimately you can do one of 5 actions. You basically move around, do a bit of sonar, which allows you to put these tiles down on the board. You can do a bit of conservation. You can do a bit of journaling, which basically allows you to make a publication, which will get you a card, which could give you points. It can give you extra actions. It can give you bonuses. Ultimately, most of these things will drive you further up these tracks. And you get points at the end of the game for being further up these tracks as well. But it's mechanically quite straightforward. What you'll do, you'll put a disc down onto a member of staff, which will allow you to do the action, and some of the actions might require you to spend a second disc to put onto the board to indicate where you want to play. So if you do a conservation action, you need to select basically which turtle you want to save, or which sonar action you want to take up, which will give you a benefit. It'll tell you where you can sonar. So you've got to be careful about how many of the discs you spend and in what sequence, because if you get to the end of your turn, you've got one disc left, you go, I want to do some conservation. Oh, bollocks, I can't. Because you can do the action, but you can't put the second disc down because you don't have it. So the number of discs is actually quite important. And essentially, the game is basically based around a bunch of scenarios, of which there are, if I remember rightly, it's either 12 or 24, I forget which. And each of those gives you different end-of-game scoring scenarios as well. So it changes the emphasis on which actions take preference and which actions people are going to be fighting over. So some of them might be, right, we need to do a bit more conservation, we need to get some journal papers out, all those kinds of things. So, but ultimately, mechanically, it's really quite straightforward. Mm-hmm. I think it's slightly lighter than the original game, if I have to be honest. There's a bit more going on in the first game, but I think Endeavour Deep Sea, to me, really hangs together really, really well. I love it. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. I've played it about 10, maybe more times since I've had
Wow.
it. I really enjoy it. I think it's fantastic. And everybody I have played it with has enjoyed it as well, Mr. Summers.
I enjoyed this game. It was a game that I enjoyed.
The neutral tone there. I hardly endorse this product or service.
You know, it's like I did enjoy it. It was a good game, and I would like to play it again. But I don't know whether I'd want to keep playing it after that.
You, sir, are wrong.
This is a classic Andy and Rory disagree about board game.
It is. It's like you with Shackleton Base. You love Shackleton Base, and I thought it was all right. I really, really enjoy Endeavour Deep Sea, and you think it's all right, and that's fine.
It was a really fun game. I think, having played Endeavour and Endeavour Deep Sea, both very recently, I think Deep Sea is more accessible. I think it is, like say, it's a bit lighter. It's faster to just set up. It's faster to play. And it just makes a little bit more sense because it's just exploring the ocean, whereas the original Endeavour, Age of Sail, is it's colonialisation. So it has some touchy subjects around slavery, and exploration of the world back in yonder day. And it's good. They're good games, but I'm not in any particular cracking rush to go play it again or to explore it more. I felt it was a little bit obvious.
Possibly. I mean, not necessarily.
What I had to do every turn was just like, oh, well, I need to do this to score points, so I'll just go ahead and do that then. And this is the way I need to do it. It felt like
that's not what you said when you were playing, you lying shite. You were struggling to take discs back. And which one do I do? Oh no, I've done it wrong. Oh, I need to do that one now. Oh no.
That was like in game, but it's like now that like but that was like in the first few rounds. But once I got that, it's like all the rules and how I need to do everything. Everything seemed to, like you said, everything hangs together really well. But I think all the choices in this game was just like, to do this, I need to do this, this, and this. And it came I found it quite straightforward to work out the sequence of events I needed to do every round. After I had those initial kind of 2 or 3 rounds where I was learning the game and poking it, trying to figure stuff out. But come round 4, I was like, I just do this. And it was just, I did it. And it was similar when Steve and I played Endeavour Age of Sail. Once I saw how similar they were mechanically, it's just, I get what I have to do here. And it was never any great... There was never any great crunch to work out the best way to do a thing. It was, this is the way to do the thing.
So why didn't you win?
Well, because I had those first 2 turns. Those first 2 turns where I didn't know, but also with the main reason I didn't win is obviously there's 3 objectives.
Yes.
And you and Alora obviously doubled down on objective number 2, which was worth the most points. So although I won objectives 1 and I won objective 3, the combined score wasn't as much as what I lost out on from Objective 2. And it's
And
I didn't know
the point,
that.
I suppose.
That's it. I didn't know to do that at the beginning of the game. Next time I play, I go, right, which one's worth the most points? That one. That's the one I'm going to do. Which one's worth the second most points? That one. Dark the other one off.
But there's more competition for that, you see. And the thing is, depending on what comes out on the board, because the board is different every time, because it depends on what people choose to put on the board. So you might not have access. You might not have access to those particular things. So it will. It varies very different every single time. Because there's a big stack of tiles for each depth, and you only get 5 tiles per depth, and there's like 10 or 12 tiles per depth, as it were. So you never see the full game every time.
True. But again, I have agency with that. If I know the objective is to do this in this section, this area of sea, I make sure that I explore it, and therefore I get to choose the tile. And yes, I only get to choose 2, but I'm always going to choose the better one.
Not necessarily, because you might need the bonus it gives you, because you want to go up one more on the track, which is important.
That's just stupid.
And also, once you've put the tile down, someone else can move on to it and take advantage of it before you can.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong, Andy. It's just you love this game, and that's fine. I thought this is a good game. This is a good game, and that's really what I have to say about it. It's a good game.
That's fair enough. It is a good game. No, I mean, excuse me. I've definitely played more complicated games. I've definitely played simpler games. But I don't know, there's something about it just clicks for me. I don't know what it is. I think it's just the chaining of things together that just is very, very pleasing. And it's very pretty as well. The artwork's lovely. It's very straightforward. It does its job. There's extra bits in it that can kick off additional chaining of bonuses as well, depending on which tiles come down. So yeah, I don't know. For me, it just really, really works very, very well. It's clean, crisp, and tidy.
How does it scale with different players? Because I've played both Endeavour and Endeavour Age of Sail. And although Age of Sail, I'm struggling to remember what was actually in the original Endeavour, although Age of Sail does do things to try and balance it out for more players, like adds a dummy player in a 2-player game and has different sized maps, it still feels like it's a game where you should play 4 or 5 players. You should have as many people as possible clogging up that board and limiting your choices. So how does Deep Sea do that?
It scales well. I think it works just as well at 2 as it does with 5, because at 2 you don't get to explore as much of the ocean. So the board is smaller.
The board is actually smaller, of course it is. Yeah,
because you don't get as many actions to explore unless you really focus on it, but then you won't be doing anything else. So it does, in a way, sort of naturally scale with more. I mean, I've only seen a lot of the 5th level of ocean explored with the higher player counts, really. So yes, the game does get bigger with more players, so it does scale quite nicely, and it'll play up to 5 if you've got the deluxe version or the expansion or whatever it is. So I can tolerate up to 5. I think the base game, the normal version of it, only plays up to 4. But it works well.
Tell you what, so this game is published by Burnt Island Games.
It is.
And what they need to do, because Burnt Island Games is also kids table board games. They're one publisher. They publish kids games under one name and adult games under another one. They need to make a light version of Endeavour Deep Sea, but the Octonauts edition. And I'd be all over that.
Oh, you're all about the theme, are you?
Ah, yeah. Yeah. I think that'd be so much more fun. Octonauts, Endeavour Octonauts, whatever it is, they're brilliant.
To be fair, Rory is sporting a Captain Barnacles-esque beard right now.
True.
Yeah.
He's looking definitely salty sea dog there. All right, could work, you know.
I have no idea what you people are on about.
Captain Barnacle is
Captain Barnacles, man.
Probably
I've heard
the
of Captain
second
Haddock,
best
but not
captain
Barnacle
ever.
Well, yeah, you're Captain Haddock.
Well, we'll have less of that.
Endeavour Deep Sea. If you've played it, let us know what you think. Are you Team Rory or Team Andy? Because I think in 2025 we do need to keep track of, Team Andy, Team Rory.
Well, you could use your fancy Dan clipboard there.
You could. That's a good shout, Sid.
I could do it.
You've got the technology.
Tally on there, yeah.
Keep a
He's
tally
made a
on
note
there.
on it. He's just made a note on the damn thing.
No, I
There
made
you
a note
go.
about the kids' table board game, the name of the publisher, just while we were talking about it there.
One thing I will say.
Why does
is-
it have its own hook?
Oh, goodness sake, that is ridiculous.
Sid, you're a fan of the shadow board. You know why it's got its own hook.
Yeah, but I know, but you just have to check it out. You just have to put your you have to put your token on the hook when you take it off to make sure that people know you've taken it.
Yeah, but no, look, why do you why does it need a hook? Where else am I going to put my clipboard? Can't have it on my desk. It takes up,
I think I could think of a few places, mate, but you won't like them.
I love
Moving
the way
on.
that Andy is trying to discuss a board game here and he's got completely derailed by Rory's clipboard.
It's quite all right. I have derailed other people in the past, sometimes deliberately. One thing it is worth noting, actually, is this game has absolutely no plastic in it, apart from the shrink wrap that comes in, which is nice.
Really?
Yes, absolutely none. So all of the inserts are done by
game trays.
game trays, but they're a kind of sort of cardboardy type affair. And yeah, the whole thing is just out of wood or cardboard, and it's really, really lovely. Very, very lovely. I think it's £60 for the version I've got, which is like everything, which I think is
That's
actually a bit of a
not bad.
bargain, actually.
Yeah, that's very reasonable.
It
Based
is.
on what you've
Or
described.
for £51 on our show sponsor, Kienda, you can go get Shackleton Base and have even more fun. Just saying.
No. Or you can play it once and go, yeah, it was all right.
Actually, because I forgot to mention our show sponsor at the beginning of the show, is Endeavour available on Kienda at the moment, Rory?
Find out.
No, let's make a note of his clipboard.
Ah, you weren't prepared for that one, were you, Summers?
I suppose actually I really should be prepared for this. No, I'm not.
Doesn't know. Deep Sea Adventure is available, which I think is a completely different game.
It is a completely different game. Deep Sea Adventure is just basically Clank Light, isn't it?
That's one of those oink shits, isn't it?
It is. It's one of the good, the Oink games that isn't terrible. I quite like Deep Sea Adventure, but only because it is literally just Clank Light, super light. Roll dice, push your luck, decide, grab treasure, bail out, done.
It's out of stock anyway. So
Yeah,
no good.
it's
Mind
not-
you, you could get a copy of The Crew, and we all love The Crew.
No.
No. Although, actually, as a quick aside, I shall
The look of
shoehorn
glee in
in.
your face, Sid. You're just like, I'm just going to stir it up.
I'm going to shoehorn in a small game called.
Not on the show notes.
I know.
Rory spat out his tea in disgust.
Is it The Crew too?
It's not. It's called The Gang, which is apparently hot shit at the moment. But it's essentially, you're supposed to be basically a gang breaking into a bank. But it is, ultimately, collaborative poker, which sounds weird, and it was weird when I was pitched it. But it's actually quite good. You're basically playing Texas Hold'em. But the idea, you're not making any bets. What you're doing instead is you're taking chips with numbers of stars on them each round. And the more stars on it that you take indicates the stronger your hand is. But you're not allowed to talk, which is kind of like why it's like The Crew. But there's a bit more going on, and it's a bit more interesting. So, and obviously during poker, if you played poker before, the game will make a lot more sense. During the game, your hand strength can vary depending on what comes out onto the community cards. So the strength of your hand will vary. So you might change the number of stars that you take each round. But ultimately, it's only once the final river card has come out, and the red chips basically, once they've come out, that sets the hand power order, so the hand strength order, for when you break into the bank. So at the end of all of that, you then reveal your hands in sort of lowest to highest order. If you got the order right, then you turn over a card and you've got into the first safe. If you get an order wrong, you set off an alarm. You do one or the other 3 times, you either win or fail. And that's about it. It's really straightforward. I actually quite like it. It's like The Crew, but not shit.
Well, that kind of sounds a bit like that pirate game that Rory really likes and we played the other day, in that kind of pokery hand kind of thing. It's not
Ruthless.
cooperative. Ruthless, that's the boy. Yeah. I like that.
I do like a poker element to games.
It makes it very easy to play and pick up very quickly.
But I do think Andy, you and I discussed this when we were talking about The Gang. We didn't have a chance to play it last time I was over at yours. Is that I think to play a game that has poker style hands as an element, you do have to know poker.
It definitely helps because the players I've played it with so far, very few of them have actually understood how poker works and what the hand strengths are, and understanding what high card is and low card and power and three of a kind and all that sort of stuff. And it's caused chaos because they don't realise that you're still using the 5 cards, even though, oh, I've only got 4 in the line here. Does that work? No, you have to use 5 cards. Oh, and I've got nothing. Yeah, we know. So I didn't realise that counted. Well, that's got a pair on the board. What about this extra one here? That means 3 of a kind. Oh! Yeah, you got a good hand.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I can't think of many other games that almost have a prerequisite to know another game.
You don't have to. I mean, it does give you the hand strengths, and the more you play the more you learn.
If I played it with people that didn't know how to play poker, I know it's going to be hard work. But if I played it with you guys, I know that we're just going to sit down and play the gang, and there's like the learning curve is going to be. We're just going to get straight into it. We're going to get straight into enjoying that game, not learning another game to help us play this one.
Well, maybe. I mean, it definitely helps you get into the game quicker, but I still think you could learn it as you go. The learning curve is definitely shallower if you've already played poker.
Have you guys ever played Doomtown? I don't suppose you have, because none of you guys are like card game players, as in like Magic the Gathering style card game players.
No.
Doomtown was a really good one that used poker hands, so all your cards were a card as like had a suit and a value, and when you came to have a fight, you had to get together a posse and make a poker hand out of your posse. But you were allowed to cheat. so you could have 5 aces and 5 of a kind beat 4 of a kind. But then other people had cards that if you were cheating, they could perhaps trigger an effect if you were cheating. So you wanted to try not to cheat if you could. Really, really cool system.
I do like the sound of this. Game. Well, I think we've talked about this one before, Steve, you and I, and it's just like, yeah, I do want to give that a go.
It's really clever, but it's quite hard. Should we talk about something that isn't to do with poker at all?
That doesn't narrow things down, Steve. That is literally any other game.
I waited to have my socks blown off by this amazing segue because apparently I can't make them.
Hang on, can I sit down for a minute? Because it might be it might be too emotional for me. If
Actually, no, I've got a better one.
God.
Right. So poker, right, is all about making a combo with the cards, isn't it?
Yes, Steve. It is, yeah.
So we played a game, me and Rory. I mean, Sid might have played this as well, which is a game called Castle Combo, which is all about making a 3x3 grid combination in front of you. This is a very light game. Well, I say very light. It's actually a little bit more complicated than I assumed. Some family members didn't get quite on with it straight away, but soon picked it up. It's a game in which you make a 3x3 grid. So the entire aim of the game is to place 9 cards in front of you, which are all various medieval personalities and all have some kind of effect. All of them will have some kind of scoring characteristic on them, which will largely be dependent on where it is placed in your 3x3 grid and what other cards are placed on the 3x3 grid. Along with some other interesting things, like some of them collect money, so score points based on the amount of money they have. What's interesting about the game is that as you play, you can draw from one of 2 stacks, and you have to pay money to get them out of these, and you can, as a move, swap between the 2. You can spend a resource, which is keys to swap between the 2, or what usually happens is a certain card will trigger them to swap. And it's bizarre that those 2 combinations work absolutely brilliantly for such a simple but effective game. It's because what happens is the person next to you in the turn order knows what they want to take, and then you pick a card, not necessarily the card they want, but a card that forces them to move to the different stack and therefore completely ruin their turn.
Yeah.
Cue swearing, questioning my intelligence, all that kind of thing. It's such a simple... I mean, I think it takes, half an hour to play?
I think that's including the teach, really. I think once you know what you're doing, because really, you just got to pick... Like, the market row is only 3. There's only 3 cards to pick from. And you're only going to make that choice 9 times. That's it. You get 9 actions. It's an entire game, and it's just like that. It flies by because your choices are never so complex. And at the beginning of the game, I suppose similar to Far Away, really, which is no coincidence because it's the same designer. At the beginning of the game, you're making decisions based on information you don't yet know, but they guide the rest of your game. So when you finally take that 9th tile, you want that 9th tile, you kind of really want it to be you want it to be a farm tile, and you want it to go bottom right, because that's going to trigger the scoring from this one and this one and this one, so that the other points in your display will score max chat. I think it's a really clever, really fun game that's very, very accessible, and the artwork's lovely on this. It looks a little bit like, have you ever seen the Mr. Bean cartoon? It's the Mr. Bean cartoon style artwork to this. It's all really fun caricatures of knights and squires and farmers and stuff like that. It's really enchanting to look at on the table, with really great thick cardboard, which I think must be at least an inch thick.
For the coins, yeah, really. Yeah. You could kill a man if you threw one of them at him.
Yeah, brilliant. Really, really chunky, really small books. And then you've got this great big wooden meeple, which is your messenger, who jumps back and forth between the village and the castle, which dictates where you're going to get your people from. It's a really clever game, really good. We should boot up a game on Board Game Arena, actually, because the BGA implementation of it is really good as well.
Oh, I didn't realise it was on BGA. Okay. Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's a really fun little game. I mean, it packs quite a lot into quite a short playtime without being too heavy and too complicated. As you said, you're picking from 3 cards, maybe picking from 2 different stacks, but it's still only 1 of 3 cards, and then you're picking where it goes in your grid. And there's no set grid, so you haven't got a board down, which is quite interesting. So your first card isn't defined as being, that's definitely the top left card. It's just a card, and you have to build around it and end up with a 3x3 grid. But yeah, as you said, it's no coincidence by the same designer as Far Away, because it seems to fill that exact little niche, that little, I can play this in 20 minutes, half an hour, just get some cards out and shuffle it and off we go. Yet it doesn't feel like it's too light, like many of those games that we play in that kind of range.
Yeah, it's got a really nice amount of crunch for the game type it is. So yeah, it's a light game, but it's got a really good crunch. It's a very satisfying light game.
In the Far Away comparison, then, is this another game that what price points it come in at? Because for one of Far Away's appeals for me was how much game you got for beer money. There's like 15 quid, wasn't it, Far Away, or something like that?
Yeah.
So you got a lot of game, a lot of the right level of crunch for me for that price point of game. I just think it was a banging value game. So if this is in the same ballpark,
it's going to be. I don't know. Hang on.
It's a bit more expensive. So how much was Far Away for the box?
I think it was about 15.
I think I picked it up for £17 Far Away.
Yeah, it's in that kind of ballpark. Less than 20, more than 15.
Bizarrely, right. So I've gone into a couple of websites. £17 on one website.
Okay.
Which is about reasonable, I think, and it's a pretty reasonable price. Another website, which I'm not going to name because they're not our sponsor and are known for dynamic pricing, shall we say. I've got it down for 35 quid.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah.
Yes. Which I don't think is right.
No, that can't be right. You could buy 3 copies for that.
I got, one retailer is doing it for £36.98.
Good grief.
Jesus.
Yeah. It might be the same one, Steve. I've just included shipping in it as well.
There we go then, yeah. So it should be, I think, a reasonable price, yes.
Yeah, I'd say about 15 to 20 quid would be
at that price point, then you're quite right. I think it does fill that Far Away niche where you just want something fun, interesting, exciting for a quick play.
I quite enjoyed it. Really fun.
I think it's really good.
I would play it again.
Next episode, we're going to be doing our best games of the year. And I think it's interesting that, obviously, I think we talked when Aircon came around and you guys played Far Away there. That was that's a great light game. And now Castle Combo has come out towards the end of the year. And we're like, that's a great light game. And then middle of the year, we had Courtesans. And we were like, that's a great light game. And Sky Team, although it came out last year, we played it this year. And we're like, that's a great light game. It's just even our light game of the year for this year's awards is going to be tough.
Yeah, can I throw something in then? I know this is not on our programme for today, but
going off piste again twice in one episode. Good God,
we're off the reservation right now.
We're off the reservation because I'd like to mention a light game which I did not like.
Ooh.
Oh,
Was it the Crew? Was it
Crew
Scout?
2.
You're closer with Scout. So we actually have 2 copies of this game because we have the Oink version and the original version, which Rory, I believe, has the original, and he got sent the Oink version and I took it away to play. This is Moving Wild.
Aha! Interesting. Laura owns this and really, really likes it.
Well, I don't want to spoil a review, but I really, really did not like this game.
I'm going to sit in your camp, Steve. I thought it was f***ing bollocks. I did not enjoy it at all. I found it extremely tedious.
I not only did I find it tedious, but I found it actually unfun. It was a game that basically said...
That's better than tedious.
No. I mean, positively not fun, because tedious is just boring. This was negative fun. This was like the opposite of fun,
My
whatever that should
soul is
be.
being pulled out of my arse as I play this game.
It's a game, to briefly explain it, it's a game in which you are trying to house animals on national parks.
You're building a zoo, isn't it? It's a zoo builder.
No, it's supposed to be it's a national park, not a zoo.
Right, so sorry.
That's just a zoo without fences, isn't it?
Well, exactly, yeah. That's it. It's just a minor thing. And what you're doing is you're putting down territories, which are like, there's 3 different types: land, water,
desert,
another desert,
Sky.
Yeah, sky. And you're putting these habitats and putting animals in them, and animals have a size. You need a habitat for the right size, and you need to have the right terrain type. And then you've got carnivores and herbivores you can mix up and put them all in the same area, but carnivores have to all go in the same area because otherwise they'll eat the other animals. So far, so light, so easy. But the problem with this game is it's a drafting game, and you have a massive deck of cards that gets randomly distributed. And what happens is you are guaranteed to end up, regardless of how well you've played it, to either have too many animals or too many enclosures. And you get points taken off you for every animal you haven't housed and every enclosure you haven't filled.
Yep. And it's filled. It's not even sparsely populated. It has to be full. Otherwise, it doesn't count. And I thought that was bobbins.
Me and Amanda, we played this 2-player. We played 1 round and went... We got this right, because we've both started at the end of the first round with minus 20 points. Check the rule book. No, that's what it says you're supposed to do. Are we sure? I'll go away and I'll read the rule. I mean, the rule's in your pamphlet. It's not even a rule book. It's just a folded piece of paper. I thought, this can't be right. This can't be someone's idea of fun, surely.
Well, certain people in our circle like it.
You've got the habitat cards. You've got the animal cards. You've also then got habitat enhancement cards as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're passing these cards around, and it's like, am I going to get what I need? And unlike normal drafting games, it's like, what do I have to keep? What can I not afford to give away? But with Moving Wild, it's like you don't really have a choice. You've got to take a habitat if you need it. If you've got an animal, you need that animal. It kind of ruins your agency a little bit there. However, as much as you guys don't like Moving Wild, there have been some rule modifications since the original game came out, which is Zuli, where you don't get kicked in the nuts if you don't fill your enclosure. You just score less points.
Yeah, that would make more sense, rather than just getting, here is minus 10 points for not filling it.
Yeah, the animal has a point, the enclosure has a point, you multiply the animal by the enclosure. So the more full it is, the more points you get. And the better the enclosure and the better the animal, the more points you get. So you're looking for that type of optimization. Although it does still fall foul of that problem of it is a huge deck of cards. And you will end up with either loads of enclosures and no animals, or no enclosures and loads of animals that are just roaming around wild, and you do lose points for animals left over.
I agree. I just found there was absolutely no control over the cards I had. I'm like, well, I need crocodiles, or I need Everglades, or whatever it is, and I just can't have them because no one's going to pass me them because they've got an Everglade enclosure over there, so they're going to hog all the crocodiles. So what am I supposed to do? Nothing. Great.
Yeah. It's weird because the first thing I compared it to is like Sushi Go, which is just a drafting game. You just, you have to collect like 5 sashimi rolls to get this many points and have this many different types of nigiri to get this many points, which is fun because it was all positive. You get points, you just might not have been able to get what you wanted to complete the set. Whereas this was like, I'm screwed. I mean, as I said, we finished the first round and thought we got this game horribly wrong because we couldn't work out what you were supposed to do and how you're supposed to actually score points. But it ends up it's just entirely the look of that draw that we didn't end up with enough enclosures in the first hand, which means it hampered us for the rest of the game. Because you don't clear everything at the end of the round everywhere either. You keep hold of everything and have to keep playing them. We also had a little bit of a problem with the graphic design. Now, it's a bizarre one, this. So what it's got is there's several numbers on each card, which represent the size of the enclosure, how much the card cost, and its kind of bonuses, how many victory points they're worth. And people I was playing with constantly got confused between the size of the enclosure number, which is the dots, and the points below. Yeah, Rory is now handing up a card. And I don't know why. I just found it, something about that graphic design meant that some of the people I was playing with could not get their head around which was which.
So which ones, sorry, to tell the dots are what?
That's the enclosure size, or how much room in the enclosure
right,
it takes
okay,
up.
So the hippo has 4 dots. It has a number 4 underneath it, then it has a number 5.
Yes.
So it has...
What?
Right, so it's got the dots, and then just in case I can't count dots, it's got the number underneath them.
Yes.
And then it's got the number of points it is in a little diamond shape.
A little diamond, yeah. It was a bizarre thing. I can't say what exactly was wrong with the graphic design. I'm not a graphic designer. I could just say it wasn't working.
It's like those doors that have pull or push on them. Right? If the door is designed properly, then it shouldn't have a sign on it. Because it should be obvious.
Handle, you pull it.
Yeah, if it doesn't have a handle, you push it. So
what is really bad is when the ones with the handles say push.
Yeah.
But this is it. I can see why that's confusing because you've got 2 numbers there, and then you've got an icon, and the icon does the exact same thing as one of the numbers. So what's the point in having them both there? Yeah, well, look, it's an Oink game. Oink games aren't really our forte.
No, they're not for us.
Let's be honest. All they do is boil our piss, and unfortunately, it doesn't work for us, does it?
I still really want to play A Fake Artist Goes to New York. That's an Oink game that I really want to play.
Why you not got enough? What you want to be?
Well, I don't have enough friends to play it with, to be honest, for a start. So.
Well, you and your clipboard can play it.
And Deep Sea Adventure is kind of fun, and I quite like Rafter 5. That's fun. That's a dexterity game. That's kind of entertaining. But other than that, no.
So, anyway, that was my rant about...
Well, that was quite a long... That was quite a nice distraction into a light game slot.
Should we talk about something very much heavier?
Yes.
Shall we talk about Pathfinder? Or Mapfinder?
An RPG on this podcast?
A role-playing game on a kind of podcast called Polyhedron Collider.
I think we should, because I think this is a public service announcement session.
I recently ran a couple of sessions of Pathfinder Second Edition. I'm going to start off by saying this is Pathfinder Second Edition. Since bringing this game out, Pathfinder have released a kind of third edition, which is Second Edition redone, called Pathfinder Remix. Effectively, it's not remix, sorry, it's Pathfinder Remastered, which is due to the open game license issue. To give a bit of history, Wizards of the Coast kind of went a bit bonkers with their open game license, which is what Pathfinder has always been based on. Pathfinder is a version of Dungeons and Dragons. It diverges from version 3 onwards. And so Pathfinder 1 was basically an updated version of D&D 3.5. Pathfinder 2 is an updated version of that, but still included lots of the names of spells and monsters from the original D&D, which they had under the open gaming license. Pathfinder 2 remastered, they got rid of that and renamed everything and tweaked some rules in the process. So how compatible 2E and remastered are is a bit weird because some of the core rules are tweaked in such a way that it's not directly compatible. But we're talking about 2E because we bought that and then remastered came out, but we still hadn't played 2E. So we ran some 2E. So what I did was I rewrote, I think, one of Pathfinder's first ever adventures. Not Pathfinder, sorry. Paizo, who published Pathfinder, one of their first ever adventures, which was the Whispering Cairn, which is the first in the Age of Worms adventure path, and thought to be by a lot of people one of the best adventures for D&D or Pathfinder ever written. So I thought, well, might as well try and convert something good, eh? Converted that into the new system and ran it with two different groups. One group had Sid and Andy in it, and one group had another group of friends in it. I don't want to spoil things too much, but Sid and Andy's group had a bit of a pickle, and their gaming session did not last as long as they'd hoped.
There was, however, a universally agreed cause of that massive failure, and it is sitting in this podcast.
I mean, things were said. I'll admit, people
decisions were
might have died.
Bad ones.
Yeah, I mean, the dice were not on my side, you know, but it made for an entertaining little session. I'll admit it meant we all died, but you know, you can't blame me entirely for it.
Yes, we can.
It sounds
we
like
absolutely can.
I mean, I'm going to get the blame for it. I'll accept that.
I mean, we actually went through all of the things that went wrong, and at least 50% of them you were the direct cause of.
Let's not sit here laying blame at people's doorsteps. Let's talk about the game, right? Because I reckon it's really important. In another shocker for the entire podcast listeners, Sid was wrong. All right, I'll put my hands up. I'm going to put my hands up early.
Hang on, Sid, you're not supposed to admit you're wrong on this podcast.
No, I'm
it's
wrong.
Not what that Rory or Andy will do.
No,
because this is
not.
important. This is the difference between me and these two jokers, right? I'm happy to say I'm
Are you
wrong.
going to claim that you're the professional, Sid?
No, I'm just an idiot that admits up to my mistakes.
Okay.
But I built a career on admitting I'm wrong, right? That's the big thing. Anyway, the reason I'm saying I'm wrong, because I think it's really important, because I had an impression of Pathfinder for ages. I used to slag it off, Mathfinder, Death by Spreadsheets, whatever you want to call it, right? It seemed like an administrative exercise. It felt like doing an ISO audit on fun, right? That's how my perception of it was, right? Bloody hell, I was wrong. I was so wrong about it. It has opened my eyes to how good a system Pathfinder actually is compared to D&D. It is, for me, the complexity of the characters, the changes in the way the action economy works. So instead of having a move and an action as you would in D&D, you've got 3 actions that you spend different quantities of to do something. So you can spend it on 1 action on a move, or 2 actions on an attack, or etc. etc. So big action, small action kind of thing if you're losing a free league or one of the other kind of more modern systems. But that aside, right, the flavour, the complexity of characters, how different everybody's characters were, the new classes. There was, I mean, maybe this is something because it's just new to me compared to D&D, and I'm jaded with D&D as I think we all know. But yeah, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I want to play more. And I did not think I'd be saying that on something that's based on D&D.
Shock horror. Wash your mouth out.
Well, it's I think, as I say, it's far more intricate and subtle than I ever thought it was going to be. And I think maybe some of this is because we did it on a VTT. So a lot of the admin that might be originally associated with this system was done for us. So, you were able to use online creators to build your characters up and do a lot of the sums and the calcs and all that kind of faffy shit. All right, some people like that. I ain't got time in my life for that. Create it online, get that character into a VTT, and we were cracking on and we were playing it. We were learning our characters, we were learning their special skills. We were focused on the richness of the adventure path, of what our characters were going to be, rather than the admin. I didn't feel there was any admin. If I'm absolutely honest, when we were playing this, I felt we were all learning characters and new ways of using them, new classes, and poking the game. We didn't spend much time working out whether we need to add a +1 to this or a +4 to that. It just flowed really well.
I think that's where the second... I've not played first edition Pathfinder, but I've kind of skimmed through the rules of it. And, of course, we listened to Glass Cannon Podcast, who did a full playthrough of Giant Slayer. And it does feel like second edition does take that down a bit from what it was in the original, but it's still more math than D&D 5e. Because 5th edition really has the simple thing of if you've got a bonus, it's advantage. If you've got disadvantage and advantage, it takes away all that kind of stuff. Whereas Pathfinder still does like you've got a +2 circumstance bonus now. You've got this bonus to this, that kind of thing. So I think there is still more math there, but that's because there's, I think, a lot more tactical depth there because of situation, movement, the way you can aid people gives you a lot more tactical options than 5e does, in my experience.
I think more than that, though, is it opened up, because of that complexity, you were opened up to not just fighting a way out of a scenario. It didn't push you into just hitting something harder.
Well,
you could aid each other. You could spend that third action on a knowledge check. You could do something else rather than just hitting the thing constantly and then moving.
See, I think I disagree. I mean, there is that scope in D&D to do that. You just need to be a bit more creative. I think what Pathfinder does, it makes it more mechanical and therefore a bit more obvious. There's less reliance on role-playing. It makes it more mechanical. And for that reason, I don't like it.
Well, I'm going to counter both of you a little bit there and say my thought about this. Well, no, is that in the end of the day, it's still D&D.
It is.
They like to say it's not, but it's still D&D.
Is, yeah.
There still aren't any rules for role-playing. If you looked at your character skill, there's a perception check, which allows you to see if someone's lying, and that was about it. And there was not much else outside of combat. Everything really was a combat skill. Well, maybe not everything, but 90%, should we say, of the skills in the game are combat skills. The abilities are combat abilities. And I'm actually reminded of something very recently. I think, again, referring to Glass Cannon, they were talking about comparing Delta Green to Pathfinder. And they were basically saying, in Pathfinder and D&D, your role-playing is role-playing into a fight or out of a fight. And I think Pathfinder and D&D have that exact same problem. At the end of the day, they're still just combat games with some role-playing around them and don't have rules for other aspects of the game.
But that's not surprising given their origins as a war game, right? I mean, that's what they were, and that's what they will always be.
Yeah, but I feel as if previous versions of D&D did that better. And I think in one regard, I think D&D has kind of devolved a little bit there. It really struck me when I was looking for the Pathfinder bestiary at Monsters, and there really is just a stat line now. Yeah, I've still got my second edition AD&D monster manual on the shelf behind me. Oof. And every monster for that had a full page of ecology. Where you'd find this monster, what kind of thing it eats. Basic things to integrate that monster into your world.
Into your story, yeah.
So there's a reason for it being there. It wasn't just a case of, I go to a mountain, I find an earth elemental, bash, bash, bash. It was like, oh no, you're going to meet a wyvern, because wyverns are on deciduous mountain forests kind of thing, but near a source of water. That's the kind of detail the second edition used to go into, which is sadly lacking now.
And I think that is one of your best segues, right? Because that brings us neatly on to the other thing you did with Pathfinder, which is possibly why I've got my rose-tinted glasses on about it, is you took the time and effort to put that richness into the story. So you built that adventure. You wrote that adventure, in my opinion, properly. You created a world around what we were doing, which we were able to slot into.
I mean, I started off with a very good starting point. As I said, I think it's nearly 20 years old, this adventure now. It's at least 15. I think 2005 or thereabouts it came out. So yeah, we're getting on for 20 years old. So it's a good adventure to begin with. But even then, I looked at bits and went, why is that there? Well, that's there because of this. And they'd actually put reasons into why every monster was there. And I had to scratch some of them out and change some of them and go, well, that doesn't make any sense based on what we're going to be doing with this little mini session. So let's scratch that. And so everything was there to try and make sense. And I've got to admit, there was a lot of that with me thinking about how to write games. I've been thinking a lot over the last few months about how to write RPG adventures. What makes an RPG adventure interesting? What makes it work? What makes it doesn't work? Because we generally tend to play pre-written modules almost exclusively, and lately we've been coming up a lot of times and kind of going, it's all right.
Yeah, the game's good, but the module's rubbish.
Yeah. And I really tried with this one because I was converting it between systems. I took more time looking over it and trying to pick it apart. What makes sense, what works, and what doesn't. And that's not Pathfinder. That's me trying to maneuver it into position. And now I'm at the point where I've got that. We now need to find a system which marries with that. So we can play the perfect RPG.
It's called Cthulhu.
It's called Coriolis.
let's just move on. No, Coriolis is a broken rule system.
It is, but
it's a fantastic, rich environment and rich story. But Cthulhu fits. Cthulhu gets the environment right. It gets the lore right. It gets the system right. It just, for me, is going to be a tough contender in that world.
That's fair, actually. I'll give you that. I do like the levelling up system in Cthulhu because the better you get at something, the harder it is to level up. I really like that. That's really clever. Yeah. I mean, I will say, as much as I struggled with Pathfinder, I loved the adventure was great fun and the party was great and all of that jazz. The environment was nice and the puzzles and stuff were all good fun. And I kind of like the way the mechanics fit together, but I think it was just too mechanical for me. As weird as that might sound, as the man who likes all the sort of heavy Euros, I think the game just got too bogged down in it. Now, admittedly, we were still learning it, so there is that caveat there, but it still just felt too heavy because there were too many things. Well, I've got that and I've got that, and then I'm going to do this, and I've got to go into fighting stance, and then I've got to wipe my own arse, and then I've got to make sure my bollocks are in the right position and sort out my crackers. Then I can punch someone, although I can't punch someone because I've only got one action point left. And then I've got to get out of the way, and it just felt like there was too much going on, and it just bogged one of the biggest criticisms you've got of combat in D&D, Sid, is that it's too clunky and it's too and I found Pathfinder was that on steroids. So I'm really surprised you liked it, but if it worked, it worked. No, I found it really untenable. I like the RPG aspect, but that's because there's no rules to RPGs, as Steve says, to role-playing rather, which is fun. But I don't know, the variation in characters was excellent. That you could build pretty much whatever character you wanted, like literally anything, and that was fun. There was a lot of freedom there, and there were no limits on various. Well, there were, but there were quite broad limits on the various combinations, which was nice. And I could see what the game was doing, and it didn't, as far as I can tell, suffer the same amount of low-level squishiness that D&D suffers. I think it did. It went some way to combat that. No pun intended. Which I thought was quite good as well, until Sid decided, let's go down this dark foreboding corridor with one hit point. Yeah, okay. And obviously you can tell...
On his own?
On his own, yeah. So it's like, okay, great. And you can see where things went from there.
That's because a long time ago I've refused to not kick a door. I think that's what changes an RPG from just... You need to poke it. If you're too afraid to poke that environment that's been in front of you, then you're just not going to get anything out of it. And I think that's what was interesting for me in Pathfinder. And you're right, Andy, I can't explain it. I can't explain why I'm enjoying the same mechanical sludginess of a combat in Pathfinder that I don't enjoy in D&D. But then I'll counter that with the fact that Pathfinder's shiny and new, so we're still exploring it. No, we're still exploring it. We're still learning it. We're still... You know what I mean? I know I've said it before. I'll describe D&D as that safe girlfriend that you come home to, not the cheeky minx down the pub, right? And I think that's the same thing that's going on here, is that there is a comfort in D&D, but that comfort can get a bit tiresome. And I think that's where my problem is. A short one shot of D&D, I still enjoy. I just find the campaign difficult. And now, on reflection, I'm wondering whether it's more to do with what Steve is saying, or we're all slowly collectively realizing is that we need that input. The DM has to put more into the story to make it fit, to make it work for the players that are playing. The players need to contribute and be as much a part of that and not passengers, which is very easy to do in D&D, I think, is you can just be carried because you're not having to learn your character. You're not it's not got that weight and complexity. Pathfinder flops when you can't be arsed doing the admin. And I think D&D can still allow a lazy player to be carried. Pathfinder won't. Pathfinder will just punish you because you can't play your character.
You could probably say that for quite a lot of RPGs, depending on the group. Because we've played games with some people who have contributed considerably less than others, and we've kind of carried them on occasion, and in different systems as well. But I don't know. I think that's probably true of any role-playing game. To some, probably it has more of an effect than others. You're probably right there. It's more noticeable.
I think it's more obvious in Pathfinder than it is in other systems because, like you said, because it is so mechanical, because it requires you to remember your +2 or your +1 circumstance bonus, which if you've forgotten it and you've moved on, you can't come back 3 hours later and go, oh, I forgot to do that. Well, tough shit. That's it. You've missed it. You've moved on. And I think it forces that ownership of your character in a way that I'm really pleased that it does, because I think it becomes, in certain games, a bit too easy to just turn up on the session time, whereas I think Pathfinder encourages you to put the homework in. And I like that. I felt more engaged with it. I wanted to learn my character. I wanted to, maybe it is just because it's new. And I'm not ready to say it isn't. So I'm going to play it some more. And I think we should have a check-in point in a year or so and see whether I'm still moaning about it in the way I would be about D&D.
Yeah.
Now, weirdly, I still want to try it again.
This is my exact point. I think we do need to play it again. We need to play more and not, maybe not die after the second session. But
was it only 2? Jesus. That's really bad. Was it not 3? It must have been 3.
Did we get to 3?
You had 3 sessions, yeah. It was the third session you screwed up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Which, to be fair, isn't much better.
No.
Well, it's a whole 50% better. So it's not. I'm gonna bank that.
Yes, but if Steve is expecting us to play, say, 25 sessions and we played 3, it's not great. It's not
pretty bad, record. Yeah. It's all statistics, mate. Spin them however you want.
Whichever way you look at it, mate, 2 or 3 out of 25 is still dog shit.
How much did the other team get? They got a good 10 out of it, didn't they?
Exactly.
Oh, they got a 10, but I shouldn't say this on the podcast because they'll be listening. Some of them were very slow with their decision making, and I think we should have been able to do that much quicker.
But yes, I can keep a watching brief on it. I'll come back to it one way or another. We'll come back to Pathfinder because I think I'm interested in it. I'm fascinated by something that is D&D based, but I'm, as Andy says, somewhere, somehow, we're going to have to explain to me why I like something more mechanical and more sludgy than D&D is. Mm-hmm. And if any listeners can help me work out why that is, then chime in.
It's because you're a weird bastard, that's why.
That's true.
Right then, folks, I think that's all we've got time for today. So thank you very much for listening. By the way, we have been sponsored by Kienda. If you fancy getting yourself a board game, go check out Kienda. Go check the link in the show notes. It'll give you a juicy discount on your first order. Thank you very much for listening, of course. Please give us a review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice and share the show where you can. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads and Blue Sky. Just look for Polyhedron Collider, and we're also on Board Game Geek Guild 2726. Our next episode is going to be the best game of the year, or our best game of the year, so of course a biggie. And the episode after that is going to be our picks for the games we're excited for in 2025. So if you'd like to tell us what your favourite game of the year was, let us know, because we could do with hearing all your thoughts. Well, we might not agree with them. In fact, I can guarantee that at least one person won't agree with them. We can't say which one. Also, any games you're excited for 2025, let us know as well, because there's bound to be something we've missed. But until next time, happy gaming.
See you later.
Hang on, derailed me. Whoa, he's derailed me there. You have to go back and start again now.
Happy gaming.
Ta-ra.
Cheerio.
Bye-bye. You cock. You do that.
Yeah,
We do that more.
Completely threw us both off. We didn't know where to go.
You know how I feel about change.